Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Christmas card to share featuring the Spellbinders 2020 October Large Die of the Month. I call this an over-the-top Christmas card as it is pretty detailed. I'm a big fan of Spellbinders Club products, and whenever there is a die set that I simply adore, I always try to find some time to make an extra project and film a video tutorial for you guys. This month, the large die of the month is an incredibly gorgeous door die. I've wanted a die like this for a very long time, and I couldn't be happier with this die set. It includes everything one could possibly want to make a door card. Now, my card is a Christmas card, but this door itself can be made into any occasion door. It could be a Halloween door, a Thanksgiving door, a spring door, a Happy Valentine's door, you name it. Okay, here I've already die cut the door from a panel of red cardstock. I want my door to be red. The door die makes such a cut so that the door die cut remains attached to the panel. And there is a score line that turns into a hinge and allows the door to open and close. If you want to use just the door, you can cut it out along that score line. Just use your paper trimmer or your scissors and you'll have a standalone door. Now, the die adds a ton of detail to the die cut, and it is best to dry emboss it to amplify that detail. I've placed the die back onto the paper. I can somewhat feel it lock in place, and now I'm placing that onto the platform of my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. I'm adding the embossing mat. I'm holding everything in place with one hand so that the paper doesn't accidentally move, and then I'm adding an embossing plate over that and sending this through my die cutting machine to emboss. These days, I rarely emboss with my dies, but whenever there is an option to add dry embossing to your die cuts, I encourage you to utilize it as it really adds a ton of detail. Here is the embossed version, and just for comparison, the two versions side by side, and you can see a clear difference. So always emboss if there's an option for you to do that. This die comes with all sorts of pieces to decorate the door. First, I have the decorative panel. It could be a window or it could be just a panel. I've cut mine from gold mirror cardstock and I've added a double-sided adhesive sheet before die cutting to the back of my cardstock so that I end up having a sticky die cut. This makes it very easy to adhere a delicate die cut such as this one onto any surface. I've also cut out the same design from white cardstock, and here I've used thicker paper, and that helps to keep the die cuts in the die so that they do not fall out. And what I'm going to do is inlay all of the pieces inside the gold die cut. I've added dots of glue into the openings. I've placed the die with the die cuts onto the gold die cut. I've locked it in place. You can feel it with your fingers when it sort of snaps into place. And I've used my tool-in-one. By the way, this is a new tool-in-one from Spellbinders. It comes in a different color to match the Spellbinders Platinum machines and also other products. And it has an updated insert for the tool, which is like an angled tool pick instead of a spatula tool. Overall, a very useful tool to have when you do your die cutting. Now, anyhow, I've used the pokey end of the tool-in-one to push the die cuts out of the die and onto the glue on my card. And here I have my stained glass window ready. Well, it isn't a stained glass window, but you get the idea. Next, the die set has a die to also cut a mail slot and a handle. And I've cut these from the same mirror gold cardstock. The mail slot has an opening and you can slide a letter, a tiny envelope, into that opening. Now, speaking of the envelope, there is a die to cut that as well. It cuts a rectangle and a triangle, and you can just pop the triangle onto the rectangle and have yourself a tiny envelope to put in the mail opening. And it looks so realistic too. I like things popped up on my card, so I added a foam square behind this and adhered it onto the card so that it looks a little bit dimensional there. I also adhered the door handle, and I will later add a clear droplet over the door handle to make it into a dimensional handle. Right now it is just flat, and if I want to open the door, I can't really use it. It serves no purpose other than a decorative purpose. Next, this die set has columns and steps dies and a valance die to add around the door. When die cutting the columns, you'll also want to dry emboss them, as that will add a ton more detail to them. Now there's also this little die that will cut decorative accents to add to the columns, and I've cut mine from black. You can just go ahead and adhere them to the columns like so. And I've seen these cut from all sorts of colors of cardstock, even gold, and that looks especially stunning. Now even the columns can be cut from other colors of cardstock. Gray would be the most common, but we can make these elements any color we like. Don't you agree? I used glue to adhere the step under the door, and next I used glue to adhere the valance above the door. Next, I used foam adhesive squares to foam mount the columns to add dimension to my card. You can also die cut additional columns, adhere them flat onto the card, and then add these decorative columns, embossed columns, on top with foam adhesive. Or die cut columns from fun foam and use that instead of foam adhesive, and that would look the best. Next, there is a die to cut little rectangles, and these are door detail. You can skip it or add it, your call. I've cut mine from white cardstock and adhered onto the door for additional interest. Now, the next part is the doormat. And yes, there is even a doormat in this die set, and you have two doormat options. One that says best wishes and another one that says welcome. I'm using the welcome one. I've cut one part from black cardstock and another from craft cardstock, and I'm just going to adhere the craft onto the black and then onto the card. You have every tiny door detail in this die set. Everything you can imagine is included in this set, making it one of the best sets out there. I already see myself using this die set all year round. Okay, next I use scissors and cut the excess red cardstock off. Now, I did that because I wanted to have a different color wall next to the door. You can keep it as is if you like this wall color, but I wanted to have a different look, so I cut it off. And you can see here how the door opens. I don't think I shared it before. Now, because the door opens, you have the option to place something behind that door. It can be a photo. Imagine adding a holiday photo. It can be a gift card. It can be a message. I decided I would add a message, and I used my Simon Says Stamp Holiday Greetings Mix 1 stamp set to stamp the message. I tried different message options, and one with Merry looked the best, and it also fit the best behind the door. I heat embossed the Merry message in antique gold embossing powder on craft cardstock. I simply adore the look of gold on craft. It's very beautiful and very subtle, perfect for a holiday card. Here's what this is going to look like once I add the door on top. Now I'm going to foam mount the door panel onto the heat embossed message panel to create an additional level of dimension. This is going to be a pretty dimensional card, but this is the kind of card I like. You can skip adding all of that foam adhesive if you want a thinner card, especially if you plan to mail it. I'm going to keep this card for myself, so I'm not really concerned about adding too much fun foam. So here I've foam mounted the door frame onto the sentiment panel, and I really like how this looks. I'm going to adhere this onto a background. I have already stamped a panel of craft cardstock using a wood grain stamp from Simon Says Stamp and clear embossing ink for a tone-on-tone look, so that it looks like the wall of my house is made out of wood. I also heat embossed a sentiment that reads Christmas, so that the message on the inside of the card or behind the door doesn't just say Merry, it says Merry Christmas. Now I'll go back to the inside or the panel behind the door later to dress it up a bit more. Now I want to work on decorating the door itself. I've cut the wreath for this card, and also I die cut pieces to make a swag to go around the door. I used dies from the Festo Noel die set for this. I've got all the greenery from light and dark green cardstock, and now I'm adhering the light onto the dark and offsetting it slightly to have two-tone greenery pieces for the door. I looked up images of Christmas doors on Pinterest and I noted how they were decorated, and I used that as inspiration for my door. And this is where I got the swag idea to have the Christmas garland go all the way around the top of the door. Now, by the way, the wreath die, that actually comes with the door die. I also have little holly die-cut leaves, and I've adhered those as well onto the greenery. I then die-cut poinsettias from gold mirror and gold glitter papers. I'm shaping the tiny poinsettias a little bit to make them slightly dimensional. I'm using an old eraser for this and a ball stylus tool on top to create little dimension to my flowers. I'm then adhering the flowers onto the greenery and adhering everything onto that tiny swag piece. I ended up using that particular piece for the wreath, but I made similar pieces for the swag around the door. I just skipped adding the holly leaves. I did also add red berries made from red glitter cardstock. I used glue to adhere everything onto the card, and that I think, is what made this card quite over the top. Building the decorative pieces took just as long, if not longer, than making the door itself. So this is why I said that this is not the kind of card you will want to mass produce. Now here I added that small droplet onto the door handle, and that made it dimensional and functional. I left it to dry overnight before using it as intended. And now I'm actually able to use that droplet as a handle and pull the door open and closed. I also decorated that inside panel with a sentiment. I used a red pen by Jane Davenport and colored the berries red on the stamped image. Next, I used a gold shimmer pen, also from Jane Davenport, and colored the leaves gold. I should have done that before assembling the card, but I really didn't think of that at the time. I didn't plan to decorate it any further at that point. I also used a clear shimmer pen from Tonic Studios and added just touches of shimmer to the swag and wreath. Lastly, I added a bunch of snowflakes around the door to mimic falling snow. The smaller snowflakes come with the door die, and the larger snowflake is from another set, the Festo Noel set, also from Spellbinders. I even added a snowflake or two behind the door just for fun. I love how this card turned out, even though it is quite over the top. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's over the top? Do you think it's too much? Or do you think it's just enough? I also have two more card ideas to share with you, which I've made for the Spellbinders blog and YouTube channel using this die set. I hope you enjoy seeing more inspiration with this die set. It is simply phenomenal. In case you're new to the Spellbinders and the clubs, the large die of the month, this is the door die, is a subscription club. It's a membership available from the Spellbinders website only. This subscription is $27.50 per month. US shipping is included in the cost. Every month there's a new die set delivered to your door along with lots of inspiration from Spellbinders. If you enjoy die cutting, you will enjoy these kits as the designs are always fresh and trendy. I don't share projects with the kits every month here on my YouTube channel, but I do try and create fun cards using these products whenever I have the time. For full supplies, please go to the video description or over to my blog. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.